So if you feel a little bit like your lifestyle business has become your whole damn life, you're not alone. And this episode is for you. We are here to talk about assessing your mess, which is the new quiz that we just released with Stephanie Verrigan for the Get Your Shit Together program. Now, this episode is not about that program, but I would encourage you, if anything in here resonates with you, to go to realignyourstrategy.com/GYST and get yourself into this quiz to see where you're at. And here's why. When your lifestyle business feels like it's taken over your life, you ain't cute anymore. You're not getting anything done that's impactful and important and meaningful in a way that feels like expansive and joyful. And you're probably doing the same thing that Stephanie and I have seen happen over and over again, which is sitting at the same spot, not being able to go forward, not being able to do that thing that I really hate the words, but it's the thing that we do when we grow. Oh yeah, scale, right? Because you've got too much on your plate. So how in the world would you want to take on more? What it feels like when your lifestyle business has become your whole life, when this thing that you started that you thought was going to set you free has instead put you in chains. Can you tell that I've been there a few times? Can you tell that I feel that really hardcore? Of course, because I've been there myself several times, and I've been there with clients over and over and over and over again. And Stephanie and I created this quiz, and I wanted to spend a whole episode going through what each question meant and some of the thoughts we have behind why these things matter. Because, like I said to y'all a couple of weeks ago, I'm tired of this. There is a better way. We can get off of this wheel of death. I don't even want to call it a hamster wheel anymore. But in order to do that, we first have to do what Stephanie and I call gathering and grounding, meaning we have to come back into ourselves and feel rooted, not just in our values, which every fucking coach will tell you. And yes, it's important, but it's only like a tenth of the story. But we have to feel rooted in what the purpose of the work and our values is, of course. But more importantly, well, maybe not more importantly, but critically, in order to scale, we have to feel rooted in our ability to step from the head doer into the leader of people role. And that gap, bridging that gap, is not just a personality issue. Bridging that gap has real tactile things that need to be done. Bridging that gap is not going to happen with nothing but a coach helping you develop your personal brand or your virtual assistants. Bridging that gap between the leader of a company and the head doer, between the leader of a company and a personal brand, bridging that gap causes so much pain for almost every person that I've ever worked with in the coaching, personal development, online business world. And that gap pops up constantly somewhere when we're sitting in the zone of mid six figures trying to jump into 7. And some of us will be real lucky and we'll jump over 7 occasionally, when we have a really great launch. But it's really difficult to do it in any sustainable way because we haven't filled the logistics gap between being the head doer and the leader of people. So what this quiz was created for, and why it's got me all excited and fired up, I get when we've got something really juicy and good for you, is to help you take that lifestyle brand that you probably started with and help it grow up. Not that lifestyle brands are children or anything. They're not. They're legit and awesome, and I love some of the people who do them. but it's got to grow up a little bit. We have to grow up as leaders of them in order to move from a lifestyle business that's taken over our life into a full bloom business that we can lead while still having a life. And we hear this a lot. I hear this almost every day. Stephanie hears this almost every day. Somebody like you, like me, like her, because we've all been there, has had a lot of success. Like you've probably had a lot of success in your business if you're listening to this. You're maybe making money, but you can't seem to figure out how to turn that money into freedom. If you're anything like me, turning that money into freedom has been a tension point at several iterations of the company. Because it's easy to have financial freedom, which is a word that we see tossed around all the time, and not have ease in your business when you're a one-person business. But having freedom when you run a company full of people, when you've scaled the company, when you have people's families and salaries and shit like that relying on you, that is a lot more difficult. And you may have really kind of lost sight of what it's going to take to scale and grow and get freedom at the next level. Because a lot of us do figure out how to scale and grow. We raise that bottom line, but at the cost of our personal freedom, autonomy, and having a life where we don't wake up at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, wondering if we forgot something because everything in the fucking world relies on us. That ain't cute. And if you're anything like me, which a lot of our clients are, where you've been doing this for a while, and maybe you got to that point where you were 3 o'clock in the morning looking at the ceiling, wondering if maybe you should go back to being a consultant and just doing it all yourself because it feels way harder and now a bunch of people are relying on you, right? If you're anything like me, you got up again the next day and pushed anyway. You got up again the next day and kept building. You got up again the next day because you'd read all the books and heard all the people talk and seen all of the influencer coaches tell you that if you just keep hustling, you will eventually get to the place. Only the place never seems to be there because the more money you put into the business, the more resources you put into the business, the more people you bring into the business, the more of a monster it becomes, and the less time you have to stop and do those logistics things that you cannot coach your way out of. And by coach your way out of, I mean hire a coach out of, so that you can take a step back. I have been on the other side for a while now of that financial freedom, which is a great privilege and I'm really excited about. But what is much better is getting to the other side of freedom as the leader of your company. And full disclosure, we are very much in that transition phase in my company. I've helped dozens of people to do this themselves, as Stephanie has, but we are in that transition phase right now. We are in that scaling phase from mid 6 figures to 7 that's just fucking hard. The benefit that we have in our business is that because we've been there with so many other companies, I know what the phases are and what those logistical things are. And so Stephanie and I decided to put this quiz together to help people as they are thinking about what they need to do to assess their mess so they can turn it into magic. So that's like the context, because it does feel like magic when these things start to click into place. And I think that what happens to us is that we think that when we are needing to scale or wanting to scale or at the point to scale, there are certain things, maybe because we've been told by an online marketing expert or coach or two, that we should do. hiring contractors. Only we end up firing those contractors because we don't know what to do with them, or they don't perform the way that we think they will. Or we watch countless how-to videos and sign up for every coaching mastermind insight and spend what ought to be someone's salary. I'm looking at you, mastermind programs on the internet, many of you. What ought to be someone's salary on a mastermind program where a coach is going to come in and tell us all these things, or help us discover all these things, discover in quotations, that we should do, but we don't have the money to do them because we've spent the 30, 40, 50, 60, even I've seen as much as $100,000 that year on a coaching program instead of on a salary, when we would have been better served to spend it on a salary. And that's not to say that high-end coaching programs are always wrong, but you need to understand, again, there's the logistics of what your cash flow can bear, because I see so many people in online business and in coaching and in personal development spend the equivalent of a salary on coaching and online training every year, when their problem is that they need an employee. But no coach or online trainer pretty much is going to tell you that. Most of them might tell you to hire a VA, but very few of them are going to tell you to hire an actual employee, because they don't have them either. I know this because I've been there myself. I've worked with many people who have been there, and I've worked with some of the people, I'm a little sheepish to say this, who have sold that shit to you. But the thing is, to finally get what you want, to finally get over that hump, you see it start to happen in phases. And what I can tell you from being in that moment myself is that it is lovely and exciting. It's beautiful to see people that you've brought in and cultivated start to blossom. It's beautiful to see relationships that you have cultivated over years start to blossom. It's beautiful to feel, without being like too overdoing this analogy, like you have a bouquet of possibilities because you have put the logistical pieces into place that you need to scale without losing your ass. Y'all know I love this sustainability word. And I believe in order to get there, we all need to first gather and ground, so we can stop being disappointed and figure out the how, the logistics to keeping everything working properly and handing it out of our own hands to the people who so want to support us, who we are lifting up with our work. Making money online, if you're at this point where this really speaks to you, making money in your brand, making money in your business, you've probably figured out that that's actually the easy part. I remember that moment when I was like, shit, I thought once I was making regular, sustainable, predictable income, every problem would magically go away. Hashtag poor kid mentality, right? But the truth is that you can throw money at it and throw money at it and throw money at it, and it doesn't make a damn difference. It doesn't make a damn difference. In fact, it can actually cause more harm. And what's happened to a lot of us is that we have used duct tape marketing tactics and created a style of growth and a style of systems and strategy in our business that is the equivalent of duct tape on an old Pinto. No offense to the duct tape marketing guy, but if you've built your entire brand on duct tape style marketing, you are fucked when it comes to sustainable scaling. Because just like duct tape on a Pinto, it's gonna break off. And it's probably gonna break off in a place where it's not cute, like in the middle of I-75 or some shit like that. So if you're feeling that right now and you're realizing that maybe there are not a lot of systems underneath you, we need to assess where you are right now. We need to see beyond your shit so you can recall and reconnect to that founder magic that got you to the place that you're in the first place. We need to help you reconnect to that aura that made you so special to begin with, that made those people want to work with you, that got you into those mid six figures when you never thought it was going to be possible, so that you can ground yourself in who and what you are and start to assess that mess. That's why Stephanie and I created this quiz. It's kind of the anti-coaching solution in the Get Your Shit Together program. So of course our quiz has to be something else entirely. So let's talk about what we're assessing when you take the quiz in your mess. The first thing, and you've heard me talk about it if you've listened to this show for any amount of time, is having documented personas, brand guidelines, visual and voice, and content plans. The reason that we start out by looking for those things is those are the benchmarks for a solid foundation underneath your marketing. And the marketing pillar of any business, marketing and sales pillar, is the piece that causes the most pain, because once you have sustainable marketing and sales, you have sustainable cash coming into the business, which can solve all problems. That's why you'll hear a lot of old school consultants and business coaches say that cash is king, because it's really hard to solve any other problems in the company if you don't have cash constantly coming in the door. Solving for sustainable marketing and sales, make sure that cash is coming in the door, and you don't get to sustainability, meaning predictable revenue every single month, every single week. You don't get to those things if you don't have a solid foundation. And in a 2021 digital-based world, that is largely built on personas, brand guidelines, and content plans. It shows intentionality and a clear understanding of what your marketing and sales is there for and who it serves. And it's a first indicator that your company is likely to have the elements in place to do sustainable, values-driven marketing instead of duct tape marketing. I really don't mean any offense to the duct tape guy. I don't think it's cute. Anyway. That's probably fairly old school at this point. He was one of the early guys. So for you youngins that are listening to this, just go Google duct tape marketing. He's one of the grandfathers of online marketing. I think a totally fine guy. I hate that visual. I hate that analogy. I hate the idea that we should use duct tape to put our marketing strategies together. Okay. The second question is, do I have a clear document, set of values, purpose, and mission for my company? What about me personally? Now, as I said earlier on, values are not everything. Certainly, mission statements are not everything. And I actually don't believe that values have to come first before you hit sales and marketing goals and sustainability. A lot of people, they are doers first. They need to do the thing to figure out what they believe about the thing. And if that is you, I think that is perfectly legitimate. In fact, I think we do, particularly startups, a lot of harm by telling them that they need to know their values, mission, and purpose in the first 6 weeks, 6 months, or even sometimes 6 years of their company. You may need to know those things personally, but sometimes, especially when your business is sparked on an idea or the scene of a need that needs serving, you have to get out there and do before you can understand how you're really meant to impact the world. This was true for me. I started out really, really deep in this idea that I had to fully understand what my impact on the world was before I could sell anything. And that is paralyzing. And that has also evolved over time. Our mission today, to change the way the coaching and personal development world does marketing, to make it values driven, so some of the most impactful people on the planet stop doing shitty things that manipulate people, that came out of years of work and intentionality with different types of brands and finding where I believed that our work could have the most impact and dialoguing and interacting with my team and the teams that we work with. We came to our mission and our purpose through doing. We came to our values through being in the thick of things in the world. So some of you might know, and maybe you knew since you were little kids, about how you want to serve the world, but that is not everyone. However, if you want to move to sustainability in your scaling, especially when you're becoming a leader of leaders, not just the head doer, which happens as we're scaling to 7 figures for almost every brand, you must know what the point is. And you must, if you don't want your brand to end up doing shitty things, be rooted in a values system. So those are things that need to happen as you scale. If you have been doing for a while, it might require you to step back and take a look at what your intention is for the way that you impact the world. But this is not a thing that you need to have as a startup. This is not necessarily the thing that you will learn in your first 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years. But you do need to have it to mature as a solid, sustainable brand. Because when you're leading people, it's like that Simon Sinek idea, right? When you're leading people, people need why. They need to know what the mission is. They need to know why they serve. And that has perhaps never been more true than it is with today's workforce. Now, the third question that we want you to assess is if you are very aware of what's going on in your business. And that means that you know what the current projects are, what the state of tasks are, what the support needs are, and areas of opportunity for your business's growth. How deep are you in awareness? And what are the mechanisms that you have in place to help you have that awareness? And this question comes out of 2 types of people that we see with different styles of messes. There are some people who have every single thing in their brain. They know all the projects, all the tasks, all the things that need to get done, and they are micromanaging the hell out of being on the top of everything. That's great, but it starts to break somewhere in the mid 6 figures for most people. Because your business has ballooned to the point that you can no longer be on top of every single task yourself. You can no longer be on top of every single project yourself. You can no longer have ownership of every single objective yourself, past for most companies around $500,000 a year. And yes, I'm using ballpark numbers, but I've seen this be true over and over enough. I've seen this pattern happen over and over enough that I'm pretty comfortable using these ballpark numbers. Somewhere around $500,000 a year, your business starts to break if you are in charge of everything. But the second type of mess we see here is almost exactly the opposite. It's an owner who has no understanding of what's going on in the business and what the projects are and how they're getting done and what the pain points are. They're sort of hiding. This type of owner tends to be someone who's really sales driven. So they bring the shit in and they rely on their team to do the shit, but they really don't get involved in how that happens. We see that a lot in agencies like our own. We see that a lot in construction type companies, but I've even seen it in some like coaching and health and wellness businesses where the owner is not the primary person doing the coaching or the development or the training. Either one of these extremes is going to make it difficult to scale. Holding everything isn't possible. You must learn how to step back from some projects. And holding nothing is a huge liability where you're probably missing lots of opportunities. So we need to assess where you are on that scale so we can start to fill the gaps between one or the other and get you into that happy mid-level place where you're holding an understanding of what the core competencies of the work is and how it gets done, but you're not responsible for all the deliverables and outcomes. A word about this, okay? Because I think the online business has kind of corrupted us in this. A 7-figure brand, one 7-figure, like 1 million to 9,999,000, the founder CEO person isn't a CEO of a Fortune 500 or 1,000 or even a $10 million company. Those types of CEOs are entirely leaders of the company, and they aren't really in the doer role at all anymore, primarily. That's not where you are, especially if you are just now trying to move into the 7 figures. And I see that idea do a lot of harm, where the owner often is like, oh, I'm supposed to step out and be CEO, and all I have to do is be a thought leader. That's actually not a great plan from the position that most of you are probably at. You don't really start to get into that until you get into double-digit 7 figures for most companies. You will stay in the doer role here for a little while. You just are scaling back the doer role as you grow. So right now you might be like 90% doer and 10% CEO, but over time, as you grow, that number should start to reduce and reduce and reduce. And this is a misunderstanding that I see a lot of people really get bogged down by. So this is a misunderstanding that a lot of people have from online coaching programs. There's one in particular that I was in last year that I felt like they really needed to clarify that getting to a place of a full-time CEO is not a thing that happens at 500,000 or 750,000, or for most companies, even at 1 million. You still have to hold part of that doer role. It's just that the goal is you hold less of it so you can help the company scale. Now, question number 4 is very in the weeds. Remember, I told you we were going to get to logistics. So do you have, or are you familiar with project management software that you use to run the business, track tasks, and collaborate with team members and contractors? This is things like Asana or Teamwork or the not to be named Basecamp or Trello. Lord help you. No, I shouldn't say that. Trello is lovely. It's just very difficult for me. Oh, okay. I have Trello problems right now with one of my companies that I work with. They're not to be named. I prefer ClickUp. I'm just saying. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I love ClickUp. They are amazeballs. Okay, so do you have a project management system in place? If you do not, shit is probably falling through the cracks. A lot of people, though, the reason they don't have project management in place is they've used it before and haven't found the value for it because it becomes another thing to do instead of an integral part of the business, because there wasn't intentionality put into the way it was set up and the creation of systems to make it possible for the project management tool to live primarily on its own. This shit is hard, y'all. I don't do this shit. Call Stephanie for this. The great thing is that in the Get Your Shit Together program, Stephanie is working with the people in the program to help them either set up, restructure, or optimize their project management software so it becomes a tool that makes everybody else on the team more productive. This tool is like the live and die for our work. We check in on it every morning and check out on it every night. We are really driven on what we do for the day based on what is teed up for us in that system. And it feels really safe because we know nothing gets lost and we know where things stand. And it makes our remote team very communicative, both internally and with clients, because yes, in our space, we use the project management with our clients too. So the 5th question is about SMART goals and strategic intentions. So y'all have heard me talk about SMART goals several times before, and I'm not going to go too far into them. You can go back to those episodes, but SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, actionable, results-oriented, and time-bound. And SMART goals have a specific use as the building block that come after your strategic intentions. So if you think of it like a pyramid, you would have mission, purpose, values as the base, mission, purpose, values as the foundation, and then strategic intentions above that, and then SMART goals at the very top. I think most people think of it the other way around. They think of the goals as the base and the mission, vision, purpose as the top, but that's not really true. You need to understand, in order to scale sustainably, what the bigger picture is as a foundational piece, and then build intentions. I like those now better than plans. Shout out to Adrienne Marie Brown for that reframing. Strategic intentions that then turn into SMART goals. I know that there's been a lot of hemming and hawing over this line of what gets measured gets done, but there's also some truth to it in business. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. We do need to measure KPIs, that's key performance indicators, in every area of our business. We just need to choose how measuring those KPIs gets framed, because the number or the checkbox is just a widget. What's the story around it? Measurement and aggregation are important. You just can't leave the story out. Very key connection there. Question 6 is, do you have a deep understanding of how your marketing and sales integrates with the other parts of your business, such as how they impact sales, cash flow, distribution, team cohesion, financial status? This is what we talked about sort of in question 1 a little bit, right? Marketing and sales impacts every other area of the business. Do you understand what that impact is and how the decisions you are making that bring money in and audience in impact the rest of the workflow through your company? If you do not understand that process, if you do not understand how the choices you're making around sales and marketing make things either harder or easier for your team and your distribution and your operations systems, and how much money you have to take into profit distribution at the end of the year, then there's work to be done in understanding how those workflows impact your team. That's super important. And we miss it a lot of the time. We make marketing and sales decisions only based on what's going to get a conversion, not on how that conversion impacts the rest of the business. I learned this lesson actually before I worked in the online space, working with contractors and people in construction, where often they would go after these commercial jobs where the checks were really big. And so the big checks made them feel like they were super successful and they would have these huge gross sales numbers. But then when you actually got to the end of the workflow being done, the margins were actually really small. And they often spent more on the production of the work because they didn't understand how the sales impacted. And so one of the ways that we were able to shift a lot of these construction companies was to shift them away from doing commercial work and into working primarily on small residential jobs where the checks were smaller. Yes, we had checks when I started. Oh God, I'm getting old. Actually, I love it. Where the checks were smaller, but the margins were bigger, and therefore they had more options, more money, more time, more ability to constantly sometimes make a mistake. And that is also true. I've seen it applied over and over again in the online space. For example, these giant mastermind programs that you're like, great, I can charge someone 5 figures to be in this program. But it might also cost you 5 figures to pay people to facilitate this program. Because you can't facilitate, I shouldn't say can't, you shouldn't facilitate a 5-figure online training program with people who are not very extensively trained and deeply experienced. This happened to me last year in a program. I'm not going to name the program or the person, but I took a program last year from someone whose brand I really trusted and who I really trusted the person that he was endorsing in the program, and then paid over the course of the year more than 5 figures for it, and then got into the program only to discover that the people facilitating it, the coaches involved in it, were all 22, 23 years old with very little experience and very little understanding of the thing that they were actually selling. That is bullshit and not values driven. Well, maybe it is for them, but I kind of doubt it. And something that you just can't do, which means when you offer these higher end programs, the cost is also going to be higher because you need people involved in the facilitation of those programs who have more experience, who have more ability to hold space, et cetera, et cetera. So for you, if you're an online coach or a personal development person or a trainer or something like that, it may be that a lower dollar program, I'm not talking a $29 a month program, I'm talking like, maybe $100 to $500 a month instead of $5,000 a month. It may be that lower dollar program actually gets you more cash flow, more margin, because you don't need as much resource invested in facilitation of that program. Got it? Probably don't. It took me a long time to get this one too. That's okay. Come take the quiz. In your results page on the quiz, we will help you understand which of these to focus on first, and it may just be this one. So question 7 is, I believe in not just doing business, but leading from a heart-centered place and know how to connect with myself and practice self-regulation. If you're going to be a leader of leaders, you have to know how to practice self-regulation. I think it's one of the reasons why meditation has become so hot with top leaders, because you have to be able to regulate yourself to be an effective leader. That's all I'm going to say about that today. Question number 8 is, how often are you interrupted by your team during the day with questions, decisions that need to be made, and asked for solutions to problems that they can't solve on their own? The more questions and answers you have to give every day, in the Clockwork program they call this deciding, the less likely you are to be able to scale. Deciding is death. Delegating is awesome. But in order to decide less and delegate more, you have to have systems, decision trees, automations, and stopgaps in place for your team to do things on their own. It has to go from in your head into something like project management software, into something like training, into something like an SOP. Question 9 is, I feel completely comfortable, proud, and in integrity with my values after evaluating everything that we've talked about. Are all of these systems that you have in place aligned with your values? As we've talked about throughout this, that is an indicator that you are in a place to sustainably scale. Now, there's one final question, and there are a couple more on the quiz, but I'm not going to go over every single one of them here. There's one final question that I want to ask you that I think is super important. Do your customers regularly refer other customers to your programs, services, or products? Meaning, do you get business by referral? Whether these referrals come in the form of digital shares or real talk or in-person connections, in order to scale a company really effectively for most small brands, a referral-based strategy has to be a part of it. This needs to happen both intentionally and unintentionally. And so if you're not getting a lot of regular referrals, that's an indicator that the thing that you have isn't having the impact that you wish it would on the people who buy it. And referrals make everything about scaling more sustainable and easier. So, if you're not getting referrals, it's an indicator that either you need to put more intentionality towards this part of your work, or you need to solve a problem inside of your work that's causing people to not want to refer you. Now, referrals are a different thing than affiliates. Referrals are a thing that happen a little bit more organically, although we can frame them. But referrals and affiliates can go parallel, and they can be powerful in both ways. The reason why I want to see sustainability relying on referrals, not just affiliates, is that I've seen several companies that scale entirely based on an affiliate model really become more a company to serve the affiliates than to do the thing. And over time, because of that, their brand degrades and they lose the sustainability. Because make no mistake, if you are an affiliate-driven business, meaning your business does not create income or revenue without your affiliate sales, your primary customers are your affiliates, not your customers. This one I feel like I can say because it's pretty well known at this point all over the internet. This is the state of a company like Marie Forleo's, where B School exists as a service to affiliates more than a service to end users. And eventually that starts to degrade your brand and you start to run into trouble and you start to lose sustainability. So affiliates have their place. I think affiliates are awesome. We make a lot of affiliate revenue around these parts. But if your business is entirely based on your affiliates, then your primary customer are your affiliates, and you better be careful because your brand and the thing you sell, it's easy to let that degrade while you're serving your affiliates over here. So I prefer a sustainable strategy, and Stephanie and I both really have seen this happen over and over again, a sustainable strategy that maybe has some affiliates over here, but really has an intentional referral-based marketing, referral-based revenue line over here where it happens semi-organically, either through social shares or backlinks or in-person referrals. That, to me, is one of the holy grails of a sustainable, values-driven marketing strategy. So there are several more questions on the quiz itself, and I'd love to invite you to go take it. And because at the end of the quiz, we're going to tell you what kind of shit you're swimming in, what your mess looks like, but more importantly, what the first step is to start to get control of that. So we're going to bring you in, call you in with us to gather and ground, which we believe is step one to getting out of the shit so that you can do that sustainable scaling and stop losing your life to your lifestyle business and get that freedom that you're looking for, where you get to lead a company and make an impact without losing your life. So go to realignyourstrategy.com/GYST and take the quiz. I'll see you over there.